Welcome to Creepy Confidential. I'm your host, Noelle, your resident weirdo Wisconsinite. I open case files on cryptids, cults, conspiracies, and otherworldly creepy, bringing you new cases, live broadcasts, and local lore. So get ready, creeps. It's Creepy Confidential. What's up, creeps? Today we're going to be talking about the curse of Rudolph Valentino's ring. You're going to hear a few things in the background. The wonderful birds. Spring has sprung. Oh my God. And I like listening to them. So sorry if you hear birds chirping in the back. They're here, baby. I absolutely love them. And then you might hear me throughout the day. Today I'm trying a new coffee. So I am really excited about it. So far I'm loving it. And it's called Campfire Coffee. It's from Tacoma, Washington. They shipped it right to our house. I grind it fresh here. I did the Starry Night. Oh my God, it's so good. So grab a cup of coffee and kind of a semi-casual, not casual, my style, that kind of thing. And we're going to talk about this ring, the Destiny ring. Now this ring, it's polished silver. If you look at the pictures, it does look a little gold, but it does look to be silver. And it has a domed tiger's eye stone in the center. Now, several pictures are seen of Valentino following this purchase, and he's wearing it all the time. In 1922, a picture of him was snapped, looking very handsome as usual, apparently near the time of the movie Blood and Sand. And now look at his right hand. I'll share this picture on Instagram so that you can take a look. He has a cigarillo kind of clutched between his thumb and his pointer, with smoke kind of snaking upwards. His hand is resting over the black fabric, and if you look at his pinky, there it sits, the Destiny ring. So casual, and yet this is supposedly what was the bringer of his death. Now, the genesis of this story begins with one of the most famous actors of his time and is still imitated but never duplicated in today's era of movie stardom. The explosion of elaborate black and white silent films called for a certain flair. Rudolph Valentino had everything the world desired: exotic flair, born in Italy, and oozed passion from his smoldering eyes. He became an international sex symbol. Women wanted him and men wanted to be him. Hollywood would call him the Latin lover. His most famous movies included The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, The Sheik, Blood and Sand, and The Son of the Sheik. Born May 6, 1895 to Giovanni and Marie in Italy, his father was a captain in the Italian army and under the ruling King Umberto I. Now his mother was a lady-in-waiting for a local marquis. Now he grew up fairly coddled, which his father disapproved of, and his mother noticed early, though, that Rudolph had a very playful personality. As he grew up, school did not come easy to him, and he did pretty poorly. He was enrolled in an architectural school and received a certificate to hopefully still save his working years doing what many were earning a living at. After living in Paris for a short time, he was unable to obtain employment. He departed for the United States in 1913. Rudolph was processed at Ellis Island on December 23rd at the age of 18. He bussed tables and did odd jobs, tried to make it, but just could not catch a break. In 1914, restaurant owner Joe Pani was the first to hire Rudolph to dance the tango with Joan Sawyer at $50 per week. For those of you out there who might recognize this name, she was a famous dancer and a component in the women's suffrage movement here in the U.S. She was known for driving her vehicle across the United States with suffrage propaganda banners all over it, stopping in cities to put on a dance show to raise funds for the movement. But back to Valentino. He later found work as a taxi dancer at a place called Maxim Restaurants Cabaret, where the demand was high for exotic European dancers. He eventually befriended a Chilean heiress who at the time was unhappily married to a businessman with whom she had a son. In the divorce trial, Valentino would take the stand to support the claims of infidelity of her husband. Following the divorce, he pulled some political strings, the husband did, and had Valentino jailed with a bail of $10,000. But with flimsy evidence, that bail was reduced to $1,500 and he was released. Following the trial, Blanca would later shoot and kill her husband over a disagreement for custody of their son. It was never known if Valentino and Blanca were involved, but following the trial and the scandal, no one would hire him. He left town and joined a traveling music group, which took him across the states to the West Coast. In 1917, while part of an acting troupe, he met an actor that convinced him to try a career in the silent film business. They moved back to LA and moved in as roommates at the Alexandria Hotel. He would teach dancing to clientele that consisted mostly of older females who would let him borrow their fancy cars to drive around town. His first role was in a film called Alimony as an extra, and then moved on to some small parts in films where he was mostly typecast as the villain or the gangster. Where the heroes were light-skinned and light eyes, Valentino brought the opposite, and this helped him actually catapult to the most popular exotic male lead. His first big release was The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse in 1921, and this was his first big success. It was one of the first films to make $1 million at the box office, and the 6th highest grossing silent film movie ever. He was an immigrant and did not get along with the top dog over at Metro who produced the movie. They refused to give him a raise even though the film was so successful in nature. He quit Metro. He moved on to Famous Players Lasky. This was a predecessor of the present-day Paramount Pictures, so that's a big name that we all know. Now, Lansky wanted to capitalize on the star power of this exotic Valentino. He starred in the lead for a movie called The Sheik. This was the movie he was most known for. He solidified his image, his career, and his legacy. Now, I give you all this back history is so that we can really show he had a little drama even before this whole ring situation came into view. However, he seemed to be going to the moon when it came to his stardom following the Sheik. So what happened? Valentino was in San Francisco doing a little shopping. The exact date is unknown, but the story of how he came into possession of the ring seems similar across all the sources that I could find. So let's talk about how Valentino found this ring. He was shopping in San Francisco and came across this ring in a shop. He was interested, however, the store owner had absolutely no intention of selling this ring, claiming that it was cursed and that it was not for sale. He warned Valentino that disaster had come to all of its previous owners. Now, if I was a salesman, this would make people want to buy the ring. If I was Valentino, this would make me want to buy the ring, simply because of the story behind it. That's what happens. So it's hard to divide. Did this really happen? Was this ring really cursed? What was the body count on this bad boy before it even came into the possession of Valentino? Or did all of those things even happen and he was just trying to get this ring out of the shop? Now, the film that followed once this purchase was The Son of the Sheik, and this was a flop, huge flop of his career. And it seemed at this point forward, the fame was like never really the same, in my opinion. Now, in 1926, August 15th, while at his hotel in Manhattan, Valentino collapses. He was taken to the hospital and diagnosed with appendicitis and taken to surgery. Turns out, in modern medicine, this condition is not it's not appendicitis. He actually had something else. Now, he had perforated ulcers which mimic appendicitis. His diagnosis would eventually be called Valentino syndrome. So what he has actually they discovered in Valentino. Now, at the time, they were optimistic of his prognosis, even though he had developed peritonitis following the surgery, so infection. But the doctors at this point were like, we're not going to give you any more updates unless his condition deteriorates. But at this point, he seems to be okay. Now, what's bad is that he was not okay. Things went from bad to worse. And 8 days later, on the 23rd, he would fall into a coma and pass at the age of 31. At the time of his death, the world media would just whip into a frenzy, and the funeral became more of a spectacle. His lover, Paula Negri, insisted that they had been engaged and sent 1,000 red and white roses to his funeral. She was given the option to have anything from his estate. She chose the ring. After she came into possession of the ring, she became very ill, and her acting career kind of took a downward spiral. She did recover from her illness, and she married, only to find that her husband, her new husband, would just be a really heavy gambler and had to bring her out of acting retirement and jump back into the scenes. And she did come back out of retirement. She survived. She appeared in the talkies, as it became, from silent into the films where we actually now hear people speak. And she lived to be 90 years old. But where did the ring go? She decided to pass the ring to a young singer named Russ Colombo, who reminded her of Valentino, calling it a gift from one Valentino to another. A few days later, Colombo was accidentally shot and killed by his best friend, Joe Casino. Destiny ring body count, number 2. Now, Joe Casino knew that the ring was cursed and kept it locked away. However, one day he just couldn't help it and decided to take the ring out. And it was on that day that he was killed in a car accident after another truck hit his vehicle. Body count number 3. So now the ring falls into the hands of Del Casino, Joe's brother. He didn't believe the curse and kept the ring on display. However, a burglar broke in, stole the ring, and the thief was shot by police while trying to escape. And wouldn't you know, guess what was in his pocket? The ring. Body count number 4. So Del was convinced of the curse following this incident and kept the ring locked away until 1938, where an ice skater, I believe he was an ice skater named Jack Dunn, he was preparing for the audition to play Valentino in a biopic of his life and asked Del if he could borrow the ring and some of Valentino's clothes for the screen test. Del agreed, but reluctantly. You should have said no, Del. Jack Dunn would be dead 10 days later of a blood disease he had somehow contracted following hunting with rabbits. Body count number 5. In 2017, the ring and a portrait of Valentino was sold at auction. However, no one knows who has the ring, where it is, or how many more bodies this bad boy has racked up. So let's kind of do a brief playback, right? So 5 of the 6 people that donned this ring died. The only person that this ring spared was the woman. And she lived to a fairly ripe old age, a ripe old age of 90. So what's the statistics on this? So this ring, if you were to say that it didn't have any before, it didn't have after. We only take this snapshot picture of 6 people, 5 out of 6. That is 83.3% mortality rate. 42% of people die from shark attacks, random fact, and 25% die if you fall off a cruise ship. Just some random data to throw at you. So next time you're out doing a bit of vintage shopping and you're scoping out the vintage rings, keep an eye out for this gorgeous silver tiger's eye ring. But beware, you never know what curse you're going to inherit.